Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Outer Rim Ramble with myself, the Outlaw Adam Neeson, joined as always by the Jedi Knight Danny Brown. Danny, how are you, my friend?
I am wonderful. I'm just, you know what? I'm really enjoying the sunshine being back. I've just been like a wee flower, just photosynthesizing, being like, oh, yeah. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying having the sunshine back. What about you? How you doing?
Well, I'm a man who likes to stay indoors, but uh, when the summer comes, I've been hit with the flu, even though all winter I didn't have any sort of flu. So I've just been cursed, which is fine. But having the cold, um, cold, did you say cool? Today's guest,
Fantastic segue, yeah, as
I'm
always.
so good at segues. Today's guest is one of the coolest men I know. In the 90s, he was in the band Emanate, or Emanate, if you say it real quick. But we know him better from such movies as Force Awakens, Solo, Rogue One, The Last Jedi, and the television program The Acolyte. Joining us today is Mr. Dee Tails. Dee, sir, how are you?
How are you guys?
You good?
And yes, it's been a good day since the sun's been out. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Lord, I
Yeah.
thank you for sunshine. I thank you for rain. It's been one of those days, boys.
I don't think, because like we talked to people, we had a guest yesterday from Los Angeles, and they don't appreciate the sun.
No.
It's all year round.
No, I was speaking to people in America, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I really want to go to America. I really want to go to the UK. I really want to visit." I'm like, "Why? Are you tired of blue skies? Are you tired of the sunshine? Why would you want to go to the UK?"
Yeah.
It's just that us living in the UK, we will appreciate the sunshine because we very rarely ever see it.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. If you come over to Ireland, we get, most of the time people say we get all four seasons in the one day. And thankfully at the moment it is very much like lovely spring coming into summertime. But come our actual summertime, it's just gonna pish the whole time. It's just gonna be rainy the entire summer. So we're taking it in while we can. The saying here is sun's out, guns out, taps off weather, and the amount of bare men's chests I've seen in the last couple of days because everybody's just taps off, you know. It's just the way of it. Like, but that's the thing. At least London, I would say he's maybe get the weather a little bit better than we do up here in Northern Ireland,
Fractionally, maybe,
little just a
Yes,
smidge better
yes.
than we get it. But you're right, the Americans don't appreciate how much actually is just
I tell
grey.
you, the last time I was in Ireland, I think it was to do the minicon.
Hmm.
I mean, Dave's minicon, our beautiful event. But in between that, Beth Moore took myself, Paul, Warren, and I've forgotten the other guy, other stars and actors' name, but it will come to me. He's a lovely guy. And we went for a drive, and we went by like the coast, and we saw some sea and stuff like that. But it was beautifully sunny. There was a breeze. Next thing you know, the guys are burning, and they're not realizing they're burning because there's the breeze. Yeah,
Yep. Yep,
at
that
least
sounds
you
about
have
right.
that.
That's it. It's very, very deceptive when the heat gets here because you're just like, there's still a chill when the breeze gets you, or you're in the
Yes.
shade, and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh no, we've all burnt. And again, especially Irish skin's not made for it. It's not unless you're from like Cork direction. You get a nice tan down in Cork, but the further up north you go, you just
Okay.
turn red.
Mm.
I need to bear that in mind.
Eh?
But yes, we are having some good weather at the moment. Fingers crossed it'll last not too long. If it lasts longer than 5 minutes, then there's a drought.
Mm.
So we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. Now, D, take us back. Were you a Star Wars fan before you became a part of the galaxy far, far away?
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Ain't even a
right
pause.
answer.
Hell yeah. Oh my goodness, was I a fan? Yeah, but okay, I've said my story. Some people might know my story because I've said it a few times. But my story started with Sesame Street and the Muppet Show, right? That's what I dug as a kid. That's what gave me my education pre going into school and acting like I know everything there is to know about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know what I mean, right? So and my ABCs. But after they showed Sesame Street on the Saturday mornings, round about midday, there was a show that came on called Behind the Scenes. And I was seeing behind the scenes of types of films and things like that. And as a kid, it's if you think about it, it's really mind-blowing because you don't stop to think as a kid that what you're watching is being filmed. There's guys with a boom, with a microphone, there's people behind the camera. You don't think that. You just think, I'm seeing it. What you're looking at is through somebody else's eyes as a kid. And so I saw things like the making of Dune, which just blew me away because I didn't know what I was looking at. And then later on that I saw some people in a swamp, and I saw Kermit and Miss Piggy in a swamp, and then I saw them talking about creating some other friend of theirs with big ears. And I'm thinking, what's that? What is going on? But I'm like, that's Jim Henson. That's Frank Oz. And as a kid, I know that because they are my school teachers, right? So I'm looking at that. And then it all starts to evolve into this sequence between a guy called Luke Skywalker and there's a robot there. And then there's some things. And then it was like, okay, what have I just watched? It's like, there's more. Okay, let's see the behind the scenes. And they're showing the behind the scenes of Star Wars and whatever. Now, Star Wars, I kind of faintly remembered because we were collecting the bubblegum cards or the stickers at school. Whether you saw it or not, that's what you had to collect. Yeah. And you didn't know what you were looking at. You saw a big hairy dog thing and a golden droid thing, and you saw an old guy and some people sat in some kind of cockpit, and you're thinking, whoa, what is this? Right. And it's only a still. You remember seeing a trailer of some kind, but very faintly. Yeah. You remember seeing them advertise some kind of toys for some kind of show called Star Wars, right? But that was just because that was what was happening at the time, and you had the cards and you were collecting them. By the time I started watching these behind the scenes, and I started seeing the behind the scenes of A New Hope, and the one with the swamp was Empire Strikes Back, and then it moved on to Return of the Jedi. I was like, mind was blown. Hadn't been to the cinema to see any of this. Yeah, my family weren't the type that took me to the cinema every weekend or anything. You know, I was lucky to get to see Flash Gordon. Yeah. Yeah, I was lucky to sit there and jam to Flash Gordon. Yes. And what else did I say? I remember seeing The Black Hole and The Jungle Book, but not the original Jungle Book. It had to be, must have been re-released, right? I'm not that old, right? But I remember seeing those. But and that was it. And it wasn't until I got to high school and I met up with a friend of mine called Ricardo Martinez, and he was into the same thing. We used to hang out at the weekends, and he had the he had the DVDs, he had the VHSs, right? So we sit down and we watched the VHS, and then we would go on our BMXs and ride all the way down the street past to like the main shopping area, and there was a tiny little shop there, and it had Star Wars figures, and we'd say, which ones do we need some extra stormtroopers, we need some extra Jawas, we need all these things, because he had the ships. I had some figures, he had a few figures, but he had the ships, and that was what it was all about. And that was basically my introduction to Star Wars, and I didn't get to see Star Wars until it had hit the VHS. And then that way I got to see all of them all on VHS. But by that point, I had seen nearly every behind the scenes documentary about these movies that there were. And then beyond that point, when everything started to move to DVD, then there were more behind the scenes things like about how George Lucas struggled. That's when my interest took a different turn, because I'm looking at some guy who had the world against him. Yeah, he was blacklisted by an industry he was about to change and transform. They refused to promote him. Yeah, they told other studios, don't promote him. Why would you continue in an industry that's sick, right? But they were out for him. He went through a lot of hard times in making these movies, as we know. But I followed every step through the documentaries as to what was taking so long, why he was having problems in this area, what the filmmakers around him or the crew were like around him, you know, being very kind of disrespectful and, you know, oh, we're British. We shoot all this stuff all the time. Oh, what is this upstart doing? Just that tough, that real kind of elitist stuff. And he endured all of that to then turn around and say, "You see my movie, yeah? Everyone else has." That for me was like the story of my youth, by saying, if you believe in yourself or anything that you're doing, if you can see the vision that you have, go for it. Yeah. And I think that's what led to myself having the ambition to start off by saying, well, I want to be an actor. You know, how am I going to do that? Well, the easiest way to get an equity card at the time was to get contracts. How can I get a contract? No one wants to give you an audition without a contract. So I'm like, okay, I'll dance for people. Can I get contracts for dance people? Yeah. Will you accept those? Yeah. Good. So I started dancing for people. So we going way back. So I started dancing for Gwen Guthrie. Yeah, she sang, "Ain't nothing going on but the rent." You got to have a J-O-B. Yeah. Eddie Murphy sings it better than me in Raw, right? But I got my start with her. And then it was just trying to dance for people that I knew or could connect with. And I learned my trade. I ended up working at Wembley Arena and Wembley Stadium as a steward. And the concerts that I saw would blow your mind, dude. Like, I saw everything from Billy Idol to Paul Simon to Anita Baker to Janet Jackson to Bobby Brown to what's his name? I'll remember his name. Someone knows that tune. It's Ben something. I think I can't remember. But legends I got to see, and obviously I saw Prince 9 times. You know, and all of those influences would later on come through when I met up with some guys and we decided that we were going to make a band, put a band together, you know, and then it was like, yeah, but you need another fourth member, you know, and I wasn't really a singer. You know, I do backing vocals. I'll choreograph the hell out of your routine at your stage show. I'll do a few raps here and there, but I don't want to sing lead. This voice wasn't made to sing lead, right? And so yeah, they got another singer. We got Cool T in, and then it was like, yeah, let's make this band. Let's make this band. And from that moment on, it was like we knew we were signed by Columbia Records. Columbia Records were told to sign us by Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola started off with New Edition. Then he said, well, we don't have a white New Edition, so they had New Kids on the Block. Then by the time it got to us, it was like, well, we don't have a black New Kids on the Block, sign them, that's Emanate. So that was kind of like our pedigree, where our heritage, where we were coming from, being launched from that degree with that kind of money behind us and support. Obviously, you know, our production company saw that money and thought, "Ooh, right." But that's just the music business, right? But when it came to creating our stage shows and our stage performances, everything from my influences from Bobby Brown to MC Hammer. Oh yeah, auditions for MC Hammer. And and Janet Jackson and Prince especially. All these kinds of influences started to come through in our performance, because we were pop R&B at that status where if we were going to perform, we were going to perform like that. We weren't going to perform like Take That. We weren't that kind of band. Or E17, because E17 were considered to be quite street, but as street as the music industry wanted the industry to be. If they wanted R&B, they would import it. Yeah, which is why throughout the 80s and the 90s, it's like, oh, all of a sudden, there's this artist from America coming on into the charts. Yeah. And occasionally, oh, they're doing a concert at Wembley, right? But the rest of the year, you wouldn't have an American artist come through. We came in and covered that base. The same way Eternal came in. Like, as soon as Eternal came in, all those American bands like, Jade, this was it? No, before Destiny's Child, you had En Vogue, yeah. they all stopped coming through because now you had Eternal, and that was British, and the British were going to own that kind of market with their own artists. Now we don't need to import; we've got our own, and that's what happened with Emanate. We came out and did that. And there was something a fan sent me not too long ago. I say not too long ago, but it just hits me every time. And it was an interview I did in France. And they said, "Oh, Dee Tails, blah, blah, blah," and they're speaking in French. I'm sorry if you're French, I can't do French. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, I'm George Lucas, oh, blah, 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 Spielberg, blah, blah, Star Wars. Blah. And my friends sent me the thing, and it was saying that they were saying, "Oh, and this is Dee Tails. He used to want to be an actor and wanted to act in Star Wars and work with George Lucas and Spielberg." And they sent that to me. And they sent that to me after I'd already been in all these movies. And I didn't realize that I'd actually said that out loud at all during that period of time. So that was a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, I'm a Star Wars fan, man.
Yeah.
And it goes back. I'm like everybody else. I'm hardcore with the originals and fell in love. It wasn't instant, but I fell in love with the prequels because of something George Lucas said, yeah, right at the start. And it was, well, in the way he speaks, he was saying, I was trying to make something that was in the time of when everything was like a fairy tale. You know, the ships are shiny and brand new, but everything's glossy, everything's a fairy tale before it degrades into what we get later on. That settled me from day one. I was like, I saw Jar Jar, I was like, okay, he's for the kids. Then I'm like, if he's for the kids, who are R2 and 3PO for? They're for the kids. No, they're still mine. They're still mine, right? So I kind of worked things out that way. But it was understanding that story. And the one thing I swear, if you do not own the prequels on DVD, you are missing out. Why? Because it's the only DVD box set or cassette set that has the hugest amount of behind the scenes footage you could ever want. It took me at least 3 months, yeah, watching these films at night, and I'm like, oh, where did I leave off? Okay, and then we're coming back to it, yeah. But it's so immense, which is why, as soon as I got on these new ones, I'm thinking, wow, man, you know, you got to look forward to it. You know, they're giving us all this behind the scenes stuff. Great. And then there's like 20 minutes of it. I'm like, huh? You've been filming the whole few months. I saw you filming everything, and that's all we get. So I'm like from that period when everything was pristine and fairy tale, yes, and in abundance. Everything else that's come by is like, yes, I like some of it. Even some of the stuff that I've been in, I like some of it. I'm old school, man. You know. But even though I said, yeah, I'd like to work on Star Wars, I haven't. I haven't worked on George Lucas's Star Wars. I've worked on somebody else's Star Wars, but I haven't worked on George Lucas's. I've contributed to his dream and his vision by having the experience of being in love with Jim Henson's work. So it's like from, I say Sesame Street, Muppet Show, but there's Labyrinth, there's all these other movies that he's done, and I know what it takes to be a creature performer. Never thought I'd ever be one. I thought I'd be in something like Bad Boys 18 or something, yeah? But this is good enough for me, right? But I understood immediately how to act out of a suit, act through a suit, emote through a suit. And yeah, I kind of defined how I personally work in the suit, because most people in the suits, they'll be given their character and told, oh, this is what you're doing in this scene or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they just go off and do that. They'll put me in that suit and they'll say, blah, blah, blah. But I have to make that scene my own. I have to make that character my own. That character has to have certain mannerisms that are natural, not ordinary, because they've got tons of ordinary and they do a lot of the ordinary back there. Yeah. If I'm this close to the camera, then there has to be something real and emotive about that character. And I make sure that if there's dialogue, I know the dialogue. so that if there's something I'm saying it at the certain time with certain gestures. If you're animating my face and you know the dialogue, yeah, and you're saying that dialogue, understand I'm saying that dialogue as well. So you're going to have to roll with my emotions as I'm performing that, because I want to deliver this movement on that word. But that's because of the acting and the training that I had. All that, like after M&A, I got myself an agent, and I went back to my roots of acting, and I did some Shakespeare stuff in the West End. I did 2 Shakespeare plays in the West End, the Scottish play and Romeo and Juliet, and got to play Paris in that. Now, I got to do that during the time of Baz Luhrmann's, and I'm looking at that thinking, but that's what it means. Blah, 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 blah. Ah, yeah, look, I'll do it like that, right? But it was the perfect time for me to be doing that and getting my just like cutting my chops on that, and getting through that. And like I said, I didn't think I was going to be in Star Wars or any kind of Star Wars. I thought I was just going to be an actor, and they weren't doing any more Star Wars after the prequels. But that's the route that I was on. And then when I found myself in a creature suit, there were all of these kinds of levels of training that started to ooze out from my college days, doing the performing arts, doing physical movement. Then it was the physical movement. Then it was the physical movement, but then also the conviction of every movement. Nothing I was going to do was going to be uncertain. One of the golden rules I had learned walking into any casting: don't be uncertain. Don't be unsure about what you're going to read. Don't be uncertain about how you think this character is. You think the character's like that? Go and nail it like that. If that's not what they want, they say, oh, can you tone it down? Can you try it like this? Can you try it like that? But if you give them something with conviction, they know you get it. And that's normally 9 times out of 10 what will get you the part and what they're looking for. If you're uncertain about the part, then it gives them room for concern, because they don't want to be telling you, oh, can you do it like this? Can you do it a little bit more like this? Can you? They want you to already know. And I was able to bring that into a creature suit. So a lot of the times I'm doing things naturally. And if it's wrong, they can tell me. But if it's not, then just let me be in Star Wars. One move I do pride myself on, and I really, really love. I love the fact that I did it, and it was just Star Wars. And that was in Solo. And Quay Tolsite has he thinks he's going to be capturing Kira and a droid and getting himself a brand new ship. Yes, a brand new ship called the Millennium Falcon, by the way. And and he gets them in the room, and he tells Woody Harrelson, I got to act in the scene with Woody Harrelson, right? So I'm telling Woody Harrelson, no, that's all right. And I close the door, and as the door's closing, I look up, and you see it go like that. And I wasn't told to do that. And they didn't say, oh, let's take another shot at that. They knew they got it. Because I'm like, that is so Star Wars. How can you not have that? Right? But it was so in sync with everything we were doing. It's kind of like having that kind of feel for the room and for the kind of work that I'm doing. I remember going for a casting once for Batman Begins. And I had just returned from a holiday in Malta and had a phone call from my agent that morning saying, oh, you just missed out on a casting. I said, what one? He said, for Batman. Like, what do you mean I just missed out? Find out if you can get them back on the phone. I was like that. And she said, oh, yeah, they'll see you today. And so I'm rehearsing in the shower. I'm thinking, oh, it could be this scene. It could be that scene. It could be like the cops, they see him for the first time. Or it could be that they just want an instant reaction, like, what are you seeing? Was that a bat? Whatever. I get there, and no word of a lie, I'm sitting outside of the room, and I'm hearing somebody going, what the is that and bat? What the and effing and this, and I'm like, there ain't no swearing in Batman. And that's what I mean about reading a room and knowing the work that you're going into perform. I'm telling people this. I've kind of been leaking it out, but it's probably been the most easiest gig of my entire life, because it's just like, put on the suit, okay. Act in that suit, okay. What am I acting in Star Wars? No problem, I got it. It's just a no-brainer. I'd like to say, yeah, it's been really complicated and it's been really difficult trying to get into character and really find an emotive tangent for me to work, but it's not. I know Star Wars. That's what I mean. It's like I know Star Wars. You put me on a set, I'll walk around. You won't even know it's me. You just think it's a creature. I just know Star Wars.
You're living, breathing, Star Wars inside out. How does it sort of come about? Neil Scanlon is kind of who brings you in for Star Wars. That's where it kind of starts with The Force Awakens. He kind of vouches for you, and you get to be Kratos, who is like, when you see him at the table, there's something about the big grin that is so like, you're like, he's having a good time, but then you're also like, he's having too much of a good time. He's something kind of sinister about that. And then from that performance, you get to go on to do, Rogue One, Solo, uh, Last Jedi, Rise of Sky, or yeah, you were Rise of Skywalker as well.
No, not Rise of
Not
Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker, but then on to the Acolyte.
Yeah,
Then from there,
yeah.
how does that kind of begin? How do you get in with Neil, and how does that kind of roll?
You just gave me goosebumps telling me about that journey.
Yeah.
I no, I'll say this. I did pray. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I spent time praying for every aspect of every part of my career that I wanted. Like from Emanate to all those things, to get into audition for MC Hammer, getting to meet the MPG, all these types of things, just letting me realize that nothing is impossible. Just focusing on it and just being sincere about what it is you want to do, and being absolutely sincere about all you can do. Because it wasn't like I knew how to flip a burger in McDonald's. Yeah, I only knew how to act. That's all I trained to do. And it was, the story goes is that when they were doing the prequels, I didn't bother putting my name forward for it or audition for it because it was all being shot in, was it Australia, New Zealand?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Australia. And some in the UK, but mainly Australia. I'm thinking, man, they ain't flying a nobody like me all the way over there. All right. And so I'm like, yeah, nah. So that's kind of like the last bunch of Star Wars bits and pieces we're getting. So that was kind of it. When the talk of episode 7 was coming around, I'm like, nah, I'm not even going to tell my agent to put me forward for that. I'm not even going to tell, because it's an open casting. Yeah. And by that point, I'd had real credible stuff on my CV, from Shakespeare work to a few independent plays to a few adverts and TV bits and pieces, right? Just little bits. And I'm thinking, everything that I've been striving towards and working towards, if I turn up and it's an open casting and they just take one look at me and say, nah, we can't place you in anything. That's it. That's it. Right? I'm not in Star Wars. I can't be in Star Wars. My face doesn't fit anything that you're looking for right now. If you're ticking boxes, you already have Finn. Right? So I'm like, yeah, I could be his brother, I could be his cousin. It just ain't happening. Right? And so I thought, no, that would be quite devastating to think that I've been working all this hard in my career to get somewhere, and everything on my CV that isn't going to count for anything because it's just a look or whatever they're going for. So I didn't bother. But during that period of time, 7 years leading up to that, I'd been doing pantos. And for 2 years, I was the genie of the lamp. And then for 5 years, I played Dick Whittington's cat, Tommy, who was like this cool, strutting cat with an afro with these little white bits for the ears. I painted his face a bit like Sylvester the cat kind of thing. That took me most of the day to put on and most of the day to take off that makeup. But he had a furry suit, he had a red waistcoat, and he had these little fingerless Mickey Mouse striped glove things, he had a tail, and he had a strut like the mask. But then he spoke like Donkey from Shrek. so it's like, so there's what, so that was the gateway into that whole children's entertainment. No word of a lie, it was absolutely exhausting doing 2 shows a day in this, not a cat suit as such, but it had enough fur on it, and I had my spats, I had this tail, and in one show I had to wear a rig around my waist because we were going to do a flying section that was going to be undersea. So I was going to be lifted up. And going into that, I was going to be singing Top Cat. And in Top Cat, I was going to be on my back and flip up onto my feet with that extra weight around my waist. The only thing that helped me achieve that flip every single show was the fact that there was too many people watching. Yeah. So I was like, I have to get this, I have to get this, I have to get this. And then after that, rig, boom, 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 and then it's off. Then I could take it off for the second act. But it's absolutely exhausting. But it was worth it every single show. I would get there. If I was first person at the theater, putting on my makeup, probably the last person to get ready. But as soon as they turned the tannoy on and I could hear the children entering the theater and they're giggling and they're talking and blah, 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 that was charging me up. And I learned how to entertain the children without stealing the scene. I learned to work with the comedians because comedians were very scared about me stealing, because if a cat's on the stage with them, the kids ain't paying attention. And so if the cat's paying attention to him, when he makes a joke, if the cat doesn't get it or thinks, what? The kids are going to laugh, but it's all directed towards him. You know, there were all of these skill things that I was learning how to do. And during that period of time, there was a guy that was working there that knew Neil Scanlon and mentioned me to Neil Scanlon. And so by the time we get into Star Wars and I get a call to say, come down to the studio, I'm like, okay, all right, sure. Be cool, Dee, be cool. Be cool. I'm getting there. I think it's going to be an audition. I'm taken straight into a fitting with no guarantees, but it's a fitting. Then I get a phone call when I get back and say, oh no, they've changed the concept. That creature, they're not going to use, they're going to give that creature to something else or another scene, but they're going to see if they can find you another scene. And I'm like, okay. And I'm not thinking they're going to find me another scene. And I'm thinking, if this is as close as I get to Star Wars, then yes, I've made it. At least I was seen. Yes. Yeah. I was that happy. Yeah. Regardless of what came afterwards. Then 2 weeks later, I get another phone call and say, how'd you feel about working on your knees? Yeah, of course I can do that. I can do that. I'll do that for Jim Henson. I can do that. And then I was brought in, and that's how Kratanus came about. I met Tom Bell, who was his brother Prashi. The head that I was shown first of all was Prashi's head. Yeah. By the time we had the costumes and they were handing the heads out, I went like this, and they said, nope, that one's Tom's. This one's yours, right? And I looked at it. I was like, of course, right? No one smiles like me, right? So that was it. But what happened in that moment is between myself, Tom, and that wardrobe department, because you don't get to spend much time in the costume, yeah, to rehearse everything and work out how you're going to move. But we were both together. He had a kind of like one of the kind of like an undefined face, but like, oh, whatever. Mine was blatant laugh. Yeah. And the rule was he has to set me off. And so I'm always like this and talking to him or whatever. And then he would do something, but it was always like, and I'm like, do that. And we're doing that in the wardrobe department. So this is the first time they're seeing their costumes being worn, the heads being performed. The both characters have just come to life, and we kept that going. And so when we were on set, in between the takes, we're doing this. Yeah. My goal was to make Lupita Nyong'o smile and laugh because she was so stressed about what she was doing or whatever. And there is a photo I do have, yeah, where she does crack up. And I'm like, yes, right. But in that same scene, I'm seeing JJ pointing me out to his crew and whatever, because he really liked us in our rehearsal space when he was choosing which characters to have. And so he kept pointing us out, right? And because they can't see my eyes, you know, I'm always performing and blah, blah, blah. So I'm literally just there to make people laugh in between the takes, and you can't help but laugh because you don't know what the hell we're talking about. All you're hearing is this laughter, and we're allowed to do it. And so also in that moment, I'm realizing this is an actual gift to everybody on set. Why? Because this is what you are supposed to expect from a Star Wars production. This is what I would do if I was working for Jim Henson. This is what you're getting because it's Star Wars. So you go away with a Star Wars memory. Having said that, I was given my own memories because JJ came up to me and says, look, we're going to cheat this shot. So instead of you looking over your shoulder here when Maz comes through and Maz comes through, you're going to look over your left shoulder. Yeah. And she's going to yell, Solo. And then you're going to look over that shoulder and you're going to see him over there. So I looked over and I've got my head on and Harrison is stood there. And he does that. He gives me that little wry little thing. And I'm like, you can't see that in the head. But I'm like, I turn back to JJ. Right? All the time, I'm like, just be cool. Just be cool. Just be cool. That's Han Solo. Just be cool. But of course, I'm on a Star Wars set. So if I'm on a Star Wars set, I am going to be cool. But I'm going to give the actors and everybody on set something to work with because that's my job. That's what impressed Neil. And what impressed Neil was the fact that it impressed JJ. JJ said to me afterwards that he's never worked with anybody who is so committed at 100% at or every 100% at 100% of the time. So when they say action, even if it's a rehearsal, I'm 100%. Yeah. Why? Because I've seen the behind the scenes. I know you've got 3 cameras filming in the room. I've even got like what should I call that? I've even got like my own little I don't know, my own little halo for saying to the wardrobe department, no, you're not taking my fee. Because at the table, you see, like my knees are here, but you'd see the shoes here, yeah, at the edge of the table, right? And in the behind the scenes, you see me playing with them or whatever, sitting there like that because we're supposed to be little. The wardrobe lady said, "Oh, let me have your shoes because you're not going to be using those. You're not going to be walking around." And I'm like saying, "Yeah, but we're sat at the table." And she says, yeah, but they were for when you were walking." And I'm like, "Yeah, but they've got cameras in the room." And she goes, yeah. She goes, no. I goes, okay. And she went and checked. She said, had the cameras been rolling? She says, no. I'm like, you don't know Lucasfilm. It doesn't matter if the cameras are rolling. They're filming everything, right? She took the shoes, right? And so for that scene, you don't see our feet or anything. But in the book, you see me and Tom stood there looking very, very little. That taught me from day one, not everybody knows what it's like to work on a Star Wars movie. They may have years in that department above me, but I know my job. So therefore, from that moment on, I started to own my own continuity. Wasn't going to give that away to nobody, right? And especially when you've seen the behind the scenes footage of the fact of like the prequels, especially in Revenge of the Sith, there are various scenes where Anakin sat down. And they're saying how, his hand was in the wrong position, or it was holding something, so we just changed it. And I'm like, yeah, of course, Lucasfilm, innit? Right? But it was all of that, inner history that I was carrying, that I brought to the set. That's what convinced them as soon as we got to Rogue One that I was going to be playing that main droid K2SO. So for 4 months, that droid suit that I was in was going to be that droid. And then Lucasfilm did what Lucasfilm do. They're like, let's take that back to the drawing board, shall we? Right? And you know what? I wouldn't change a thing because I had 4 months in development. 4 months to develop this suit that I actually fell in love with. Barely got used. It got its credit. It got its screen credit. Bless him. Right. And he appeared a couple of times in some other movies with other people wearing the suit if it was sprayed a different color or something. But that suit was absolutely a joy to wear. But the fact that they thought that I was good enough to put alongside the principal actors, that was like, whoa, okay, cool. I did my research. I was looking at how 3PO walked in Empire Strikes Back because he changed his speed variants. There was talk about whether this droid was going to have to run, because remember there were some shots of them running in the beach or whatever, and then I wasn't sure if they were going to need to put pistons on the back. So I spoke to Gareth Edwards about pistons on the legs just in case. But that whole period, just even if I'd seen somebody else do it, I'd say even if he didn't get to do it, I would have still loved to have been that guy who tested that suit out for that purpose. And then after that, what was that? That was Rogue One. And then after Rogue One, we had Solo, right?
Last Jedi,
Yeah.
then Solo.
Yeah. Last Jedi. Yeah, Last Jedi, then Solo. Yeah, Last Jedi. And that's when I got several little parts to play. But there was a question about slow and low before he was even given that Beastie Boys name. Yes, sir. Yeah. Before he was given that mantle, there was all this talk about what type of character he was going to be, whether he was just a beach bum, or whether he was just a high flyer in the casino. And those things matter if I'm wearing that suit, because it depends on how I'm going to carry myself. And it wasn't until I spoke to Rian Johnson and he said, "Oh man, yeah, he's just a hippie dude." And I'm like, dude, I got this. Yeah. So he was like, yo, whoa. As if he was vaporized with spice all the time, right? So when we got to that scene with identifying Finn and Rose, that was like my main feature for that part. And that was one take. Yeah. We had a little rehearsal in terms of you step across here, you identify them, then they're going to get zapped, and then you react, and then you walk off. And so when we're walking through it in slow motion, I'm doing all the motions that I'm rehearsing that I'm going to keep. So I'm not going to do a different motion. I'm going to get into this motion, and I'm going to do this motion. The guys who operate in the face, there was 2 of them doing it. When it came to pointing them out, said, yep, those are the shuttle parkers. And then when they got zapped, I went, oh, like that. They did this thing. They caught it immediately. Yeah, because they knew what I was going to do. So he caught it immediately. And I was like, oh, and then walked off. I heard that Neil was giving me props over by the monitor. Yeah. Because someone's saying, yeah, that's one take. He said, yeah, Dee's good, isn't he? Yeah. That meant the world to me because, like I said before, I feel like I know where I am in Star Wars. Yeah, probably better off as playing these creatures than if I was a Jedi or if I was a main character. Yeah. In terms of making that world feel real and supporting those major characters, I kind of enjoyed that. But that's after that, that's when it kind of like turned up a notch and Solo started to evolve. I was only finding out about what characters I was playing as and when. I found out about Quaytol's site about halfway through the first production. So 2 months in, I find out, oh yeah, you're going to be in some computer room. I'm thinking I'm just a droid, or I'm going to be just a manager of this droid room. And then Andrew Jack is assigned to me, bless him, rest in peace. I love him to bits. He was my vocal coach, my dialect coach, and so we worked out this language for Quaytol's site. And Quaytol's site, I'm like, nobody knew what the hell this thing was. They're like, what is it? And I'm like, who is he? What's going on? Went and saw the couple of designers. Oh, he's a Pike, but we've redesigned him. I'm like, I know Pikes. Yeah. What are the odds? Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps. They could have given that part to anybody, any of the other CFX performers, all of them. I don't care. I'm naming them. They could be all of them there. None of them knew the Pikes. I knew the Pikes. I get to play a Pike, right? So I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? All right. So certain things, like when I say about that head turn when the door's closing, there were certain head movements and things that I was doing that I could kind of work in as Pike. But the main thing was to do with holding those keys. The Pikes have very long wrists. Yeah, that are kind of like that-ish. Yeah, and it's almost like they've got a bend here from how they walk and how they carry them. And so I thought, I'm going to hold my keys like that and hold that position. So whenever I did something like pointed with the thing or whatever, it always had that pike movement to it. But dude, what are the odds that I knew what a pike was? I've been very, very lucky, very, very blessed, with the parts that I got to play, and been able to deliver them just at 100%, just at 100%. And I'm very, very grateful to George Lucas, obviously, but for the minutia, the specifics of just how long it might take to just get that piece of artwork in that scene, just that little piece of movement, just that gesture, just get it right, just to sell it, just to sell that emotion, just to give that scene a bit more, give the actor something to work with. Yeah. And like I said, it's 100%. Yeah. It's not like, oh, we're just a rehearsal take. Yeah, I know what you people are like. Okay, I'll give it 100%. Yeah. You're not catching me out. That's always been my commitment to any job. But when it's something like Star Wars, like I know like the back of my hand, there's no two ways about it. If you get me on the set, it's 100%.
It sounds like you're not only trying to do the best you can for your fellow actors and for your director and for the creature and the effects team. It also sounds like you're appealing to that inner child who grew up watching those behind the scenes documentary. You're appealing to the fan in you, and it's one of those things. I suppose working with the likes of Neil, again, getting to appeal to the inner child, did you get to talk to him about working on and kind of being one of the founding members of the Henson Creature Workshop? That must have been such an opportunity to even being a Henson fan, getting to work with somebody
Yes,
who
yes.
is part of that.
I picked those moments.
Hmm.
Yeah, because it's not like he sits there and
Oh,
talks
he's
about
so
them,
busy, of
or
course.
likes to talk about. You
Yeah.
know, as far as like I know that what he's bringing to that department is that experience that he's come from.
Hmm.
I hit him at an experience he had before that. I'm a big fan of Wind in the Willows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his name's on it. And I'm like, dude, I remember bringing in my box set for him to sign and stuff, man. And he said, he goes, yeah, yeah, I did Wind in the Willows, yeah, for my sins. But he talks in that kind of capacity. You want to talk about, dude, you changed my as a kid, that was just mind blowing. I remember there was one panto season that I did with a friend of mine, and they released the Wind in the Willows Christmas DVD or something. And there was a DVD where, what is it? Was it Halloween? It was Halloween. It's a Halloween one or something. And some kids had run up to Toad's house, yeah? And they said, "Oh my!" Said, "Toad, we just saw something really scary in the woods. We see something really scary." These little kids, and Toad's reaction is, "So what are you doing here? You brought him here." Right? Just just my childhood. That was stop motion animation. That's what we had. We had a lot of stop motion animation as kids in storytelling, which made it make sense when we saw a Ray Harryhausen movie. What sold it though was you had grown-ups fighting against a dinosaur or a cyclops or bones. Yeah, bones with swords and shields. But adults are doing it, and it's stop motion, but it's you don't care as a kid. That's just your fantasy right there. Yeah. So when I say things like the best special effects sequence for me in the whole of Star Wars is on Hoth and the Tauntauns. That's the best special effects. I don't care what you have to say. You might like a lightsaber. You might like this one. No, 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 no. Han Solo and Luke on Tauntauns on Hoth. That's his best special effects for me. Why? Because they are literally stop motion animation characters, but they're supposed to be adults and human beings. Beautiful transition from what I'm used to seeing in my fantasies from watching Sinbad or Clash of the Titan. That's what that sci-fi fantasy meant to me. When I perform these things in Star Wars, I'm very much, and even when I'm behind the scenes, even when I'm backstage, if people are saying things that don't fit with Star Wars, I walk away. Yeah. And it happens more than you think, right? It happens more than you think. I'm very much aware of what's being said or what they consider is important for the fans or what isn't important for the fans. And I'm stood right there, right? And so, I tell you this, I wasn't even there. So I wasn't even under contract, right? So, in the Rise of Skywalker, all the cutting costs here, then everywhere. You know, departments are struggling to get the creature suits and all this kind of stuff. And all the production saying, oh, don't worry about it, don't worry. They're going to pay to see it anyway because it's the last one. I was grateful when I found that information out that they had said to me, Dee, you're not going to want to be on this one. And if I'd heard them say stuff like that, I wouldn't have wanted to be on them.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like if you're a Star Wars fan, you've got to have to hold your own and deliver that as a fan to your family that are out there. Yeah. When something happens on the set or something said on the set, and I'm like, that ain't Star Wars. Right? I don't have to say anything because then I go online when it was released and people say, hang on, that ain't right. I'm like, yeah, I know I was there. Yeah. So it's things like that. I kind of consider myself to have retired now, you know, from doing all that. But it was like, the only way I can say this to you, if you imagine that I'm working for Lucasfilm and I've just hijacked you guys and I've said, look, I'm looking for 2 characters to play creatures in the next Star Wars movie. Yeah. You know, we've got a Wookiee in it. We've got some of the old school players, but it's going to be like some of the droids. But we're really going to take this movie to town. Yeah, we just need someone to cover quite a few creatures and stuff like that. Are you guys up for it? Yeah. And from that, yes, it means you will endure whatever it takes just to deliver that. Yeah, there'll be some hard days. You'll be there, all of set up, getting ready to go, and it's like, oh, we're not doing your scene today. And you're like, okay, cool. I've had a nice day on set watching everything happen. Yeah, it's been a nice picnic, right? That's how I look at it. And then there's the next day and this next day, and you just keep going, you just keep going. You don't know anything about the script. All you know is about the scene that you're doing. And if you can deliver the best Star Wars version of a creature that you can, yeah, that fits in with that scene and helps that scene grow, then that's what you do. And I've had the privilege to be able to do that. And there have been some most amazing moments where I found myself talking to Donald Glover, just walking around the set, introducing myself to Alden, and he already knew my name. Being on set in costume as Quay Tolsite, and then having Emily Clark and Phoebe sing my song to my face. You know, it makes it tells you that there's more to take in than just what you're doing and where you're at. There's so much more being given back, especially in terms of what you're aiming to give, you know, as a performer. But yeah, it's been amazing. But also at the same time, as someone who watched the behind the scenes, you turn up on set, yeah, and you technically know nearly everybody's job. And it's not always a good thing to do that. Because when you know someone's job, it kind of like, you should be doing that. You should be doing that. You should, just focus on what you're doing, Dee. Just focus, Dee. Just focus. You know, it's just those moments, but I've cherished every minute, the good minutes and the bad minutes. They've helped refine me as a performer and refine what I consider to be my own levels of integrity, and also be able to say, you know, I don't have to say yes to all these things anymore. You know, it's just like, okay, you know, you keep getting further and further away from what George created. I'm just an audience member now, you know, and I will enjoy some of it, and some of it I will let slide, you know, and there are people that love Andor, but I don't know one 12-year-old that loves Andor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my point, you know, just because you grew up doesn't mean that Star Wars has to grow up. When I watch Sesame Street, I don't say, well, will someone please explain to me the relationship between Bert and Ernie and how we got that rubber ducky? Someone tell me the origins of the rubber ducky, please. I don't care. I want to see Bert and Ernie sharing a bed, having a fight in a tiff. I don't care. It's not about whether they're this or whether they're Muppets. Yeah, teaching something. or they used to before they got bought. But yeah, so, everything's kind of slowly decaying, and what beauty you can find in any of these things, you hold on to. I love The Mandalorian. Yes, they had issues with the third season, but if you hadn't realized by that point it's live action Clone Wars type stuff you're watching, it's gonna jar with you really, really bad. All it is live action animation. That's all he's done. That's why people are popping in and saying it's not like, no, he's taken over his show. It's like, oh no, okay. Whew. At least I dig it. I get it. If I want to watch season 2 and bawl my eyes out because Mando is such a dad to that little kid, oh my goodness, I'll bawl my eyes out. That's Star Wars for me. The kids won't bawl their eyes out. They just think it's just wow, 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 wow. When they get older, they'll have that sentimentality attached to it. I love the animations. I haven't started watching more yet. I'm waiting for that to finish. When that season's finished, then I'm gonna binge that whole lot because they very rarely ever get the animations wrong, right? So I'm getting ready for that. But yeah, there's things that I love, and there's bits of things that I like, and experiences that I've had on films that mean that I can't like that film. I like the bit that I did in it, but then it's like, no, I know there's something else. It's not what people have issues about. Like they say, I'll get issues about the story, this, that, and then. I'm like, no, I had an experience on set with that, so no.
But did you enjoy the moped gang from the Book of Boba Fett?
Are you serious? Are you crazy?
I'm a defender, D. I'll just tell you, I'm a defender.
No, man. You know what? I know. We practically grew up in the 80s, right? You know how you ride a moped. You know how you sit on a moped, right? And I ain't never seen a moped that look in those types of colors. This is like, it was just so out of place, and it was so kind of wooden and stupid looking that I'm like, well, okay, maybe that's for the kids. All right. Kids, you guys can have that. So once I say that's for the kids because it ain't for me, I've moved on. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Yeah. It doesn't look good. I doubt if they could have even caught that little Leia running away from that gang. Yeah. There are some serious things where you're like, I've directed things in the past, man. You could have called me. I would have done that for you for free. How is it you're paid so much money and that's what you're giving me? There are things like that. But then it's just like, yeah, well, if I squint real hard, if I blink a little bit slower, I might get through that scene. And that's all right. And that's all right. Even when they used to show the VHS version of Return of the Jedi on ITV. Yeah. And C-3PO, oh, they think I'm a god. Oh, and he said, tell them that, oh, you're going to do this. He says, no. And Luke raises him on the VHS version. Yeah, you see the strings, but you don't if you squint. Squint and you don't see the strings. It's the same thing with the VHS version they used to show on ITV of Superman. I think it was Superman 2, when they were coming down into the water. Yeah,
that's right.
Landing on Earth. Strings, squint. Yeah, that works. That's better. I don't mind doing that. And I squint. Yeah, there's a lot to squint about for Star Wars, but you still get through it. You still get the story. Would it matter if would it be an issue if it was animation? No, but then if it was animation, they would take more liberties, would make it seem more real or believable. Yeah. But if it was animation, it was good. The same story context, just, well, okay, that bit, all right, boom. But overall, yeah, it's all right, cool. Okay, let's move on. I'm kind of like that with it. There's very few things in Star Wars that I've kind of like buried and said, nah, the whole lot of that is just, ugh. There's only one TV series I've done that with.
Is it the last one you worked on?
Yeah. That was the worst experience of my entire career.
What?
Yeah, that was the worst experience of my entire career. There was, without mentioning any names or identifying people, there was a She-Hulk working on that, and who was literally green, who verbally abused anybody she felt like verbally abusing, and was allowed to. And that's when I realized God wasn't in the room. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like, when you walk into a place, I sense the darkness in the Force. There was no happiness on the set. So once I did that, it's like, yes, all right, that's it. That's it. I'm done. See you guys later. And that was it. But that was the production that signed me off. It's like no more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that everything else before it I don't enjoy. I love, like I said, Mando. I can love I even appreciate Boba Fett. Right? I appreciate Boba Fett because I think I think Lucasfilm did need to own his resurrection. Yeah, did need to own his, well, not technically his resurrection, but his survival of the Scarlet Pit. They did need to own that, and give that to the fans. Whether they had an actual idea of where they were going with it or not, besides the point, they just wanted to say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna establish it. We're gonna put it out and say it's established." Okay, fine. I know there's issues with how they treated the actor on that, and whether he's getting to do any more and stuff. And it's just like, wow, man, it's just, hey, they gave you a moment, man. They gave you a moment, and during the prequels, man. So, man, just own the prequels. They're good. They're awesome. Yeah, you know. And you just see these things, but you just let them go because you're just seeing how things have been changing, how they're changing. You hope they're going to be changing for the better. And that last production is what I worked on, rightfully so for the reasons that I have, other than the reasons everybody else has, was a very good reason for canceling that thing, and the liberties. And as a Pike, trying to get kids to eat spice cream because it sounds like ice cream, is what they call it, ELS, epic level stupid. Right? So you just kind of let things move on. People who want that, you can have that. And it's and the best thing about it, I was going to say what breaks my heart, but the best thing about it is that fans have seen certain types of character designs or whatever, and they cosplay as it. And as they're cosplaying as those characters, they're performing better than any episode that was ever screened. Yeah, they're not giving you any warped version of a lore or warped notion of whether the Force is male or female. What did I say? ELS? They're not doing that, but they're cool. They're wearing a costume. They've got the masks on. They're doing all this stuff. Like, yeah, looks solid. Looks solid. Hopefully, someone will write a comic and give you guys what you deserve. Yeah,
Mhm.
or even if you're paying homage to what could have been. Yeah, good. Have it. Take it. It's yours. It's yours to dismantle and use it as you will. You probably do a better job of it.
And then when you're in M&8 and in the
Yeah.
90s, and the 90s being such a, you know, weird time for music in the UK because you had like Britpop, you had like, Spice Girls, Jimmy Wobbs, and then you could have
Yeah.
people like Mr. Blobby be at number one. From being in the music industry, did you see sort of the writing on the wall then? And then did you see that again now in the sort of like, oh, I see this, I've seen this before?
I like chatting to you guys. um, yeah, but before we even signed the deal, here's the thing. We knew that any black artist or any black band had maybe 2 years tops before they were either ripped off or cloned. Yeah, and they were replaced with blonde hair, blue eyes. Yeah, that was the standard procedure. It had been happening since Motown. They changed the year, changed the sound, but it was the same routine that was happening. And so we knew we had 2 years tops. It was, oh, by the time we got to the second album, we had realized that the production company, First Avenue, had been taking liberties with our open checkbook with Columbia Records. By the time we realized it was too late and they'd run up a million pound debt, and Columbia Records says, "Oh, well, you're in debt to us for £1 million." We're like, "Huh? We haven't spent 1 million." But First Avenue may have apparently, I have to say these things, right? May have spent that on Eternal, and may have spent that on putting Eternal, use it in our studios in London when we're in Liverpool using Park Street Studios that belong to Genesis or whatever. So we're up there using that studio. waiting to use our studio time in London, but that time's being used up by another band. That time is money they're using up. You see these things take place and you're like, okay, all right. You then get to do a Childline song or whatever, and then you meet the Backstreet Boys, and you love them. They're the coolest guys ever, and they love you because they know your music, and they say, man, we were sent over here to still take that's fans, but they said, no, I'll come over here and steal your fans. We're like, what the hell? What the hell? What the hell? So you know it's coming. Yeah, because we knew we had 2 years tops. And so there was no surprise to us that by the end of 1996, the only obligations we had after that were concerts from 97, possibly into 98, because we were being dropped at the end of that year or the following year, right? So those types of things you're kind of aware of. It's like, okay, cool, but we saw it coming. We prepared for it. At least we gave it a good shot, you know, and at least we were able to achieve what other black bands had never achieved. We were instantly on the Bad Boys soundtrack, the first Bad Boys movie. That hadn't happened to a British band, ending up in a big American movie, especially a platinum selling soundtrack album like that. So I'm on a soundtrack with Tupac.
Yeah,
made it, right? It's just like that, right? You're on that soundtrack. Then Janet Jackson comes to town, and she's looking for a few bands to open up and support her for Europe. Here's our music, sees our videos, says, okay, I just want Emanate. Emanate's the only band that I want to perform with me. Boom. That's Janet Jackson telling Sony that's what she wants. If that's what Janet wants, that's what Janet's going to get. Yeah. So for that show, that's when I worked out the intro to our performance. Like we had a 20-minute set, it's about a 20-minute set, but we needed an opening. And so from my experiences of seeing those concerts at the Wembley Arena, you know, we did a little bit of Michael, but just for light and effect. So all four of us were stood there in the dark, then the light came on us one at a time. And then it went to a Prince thing where you did this walk and went, boom, everybody get up and get down. Emanate's in the house, right? But it was those steps that Prince had used at the beginning of Party Man. So in his live show, the Game Boys, the three guys that were dancing with him, they had this walk, and it was like clap, 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 clap. All hail the new king in town, Party Man. And that's why I put on the beginning of our show. And then we went into Everybody Get Up and Get Down. Everybody Get Up and Get Down was the hype, was like hype music MC Hammer used. But we vocalized that. Yeah. And then it ended up with an explosion, and then we fall on the floor and the lights go out. And then we get up and we do the routines and all that kind of stuff. But all of that experience, I was able to bring to that. And just the challenges. I had to change the routine if it was for Disney Club, if it was a children's show. Yeah, change the routine for that. If the set wasn't big enough for a dance routine, change the routine or no routine. Live concerts were always a show. Each show was always different because we didn't have to do the routine. But whenever one of us started to do the routine, we did the routine. Yeah. So we winged the whole thing. But that bit with Emanate, you know, when we're grabbing our crutches and we're bouncing across the stage or whatever, we always came back for that. We had the freedom that no other band kind of realized or cottoned onto. Yeah. Which is, we make the decisions about how much of the routine we do whenever we do it. If it's on TV, you get the video routine, yeah? Because it's Top of the Pops, you get the whole routine, you get that routine. If it's any other kind of show, we can change it and adapt it. But that's what Columbia Records would send me down to Pineapple Studios with the other guys to go and work out these routines and what changes we were going to do. The raunchiest routine we did, we were under orders, yes, by Columbia Records to make the routine as raunchy as hell. We had already gained enough press from Top of the Pops and Rick Blackstill getting complaints about us thrusting and gyrating on the screen. Rick Blackstill came out and said they're not doing anything different than Michael Jackson or anybody else has been doing. And let's not forget, you have a remote control. Then the following week, we went into his office and he said, can you do it even raunchier? Now, that's a dude. That knows, right? It was that kind of control and power we had over our own level of performance throughout that whole period of time, which meant that we could hold our own. We came out, and in the space of 6 months, we were considered to be the Black Take That. And Take That had been around for 5 years prior. We were instantly in the same ballpark as Take That and E17. Take That wanted us to open up and do and be a part of their tour in Europe. First Avenue said, Emanate don't want to do that. Why don't you take Eternal? Okay, so they took Eternal. We weren't even told about it. But here's the blessing. During that period of time, Janet said, oh, I'll have them. You can't deny there's some kind of there's some kind of heavenly presence watching over you, saying, yeah, you ain't screwing over my boys, and things like that. So you see things like that. And even at that point, I'm thinking, I'm doing this because I've just ended up here because I can do this. I still want to be an actor. I still want to go off and do movies. The other 3 guys, they'd always wanted to be singers all their lives. And I'm thinking, and they're enduring this, man. If I wanted to be a singer, would I be able to endure this? Probably, because if I want to be an actor, I'm probably going to see the same poodoo during that whole process. I've seen the writing on the wall, yes, several times, that have made me question, do you want to continue? Do you really want to continue in this? And I said, well, let me just rack up all of these parts that I'm doing. Disney have refused to give me any press as being an R&B artist, being in Star Wars. Can you imagine an American artist being in Star Wars and no one knowing about it? All right. I'm in that situation, right? But being refused, right? Which means that my agent couldn't get me any other work from anybody else because I wasn't verified by Disney, by being given that press. So they just saw me as doing over-glorified extra work, which it's now classed as, but it wasn't before COVID. And so if I'm not going to get any work and if I can't be seen for anything, because these guys won't give me the press, but then they're still calling me in for work, when will I stop turning up for work? Because enough will be enough. So I racked up all these good parts. And it's the irony about the last project that I did was that they cast my species just because of the look of it. I had to explain to them that I've played that species before. Paul Casey's played that species. Every time we've played that species, it's been named after a Beastie Boys track. They went away to research and look that up. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm working with people that just don't know Star Wars. And I have to sit here and I'm at the mercy of people that don't know Star Wars, and it's not the first time. So I'm here again. I'm like, oh, here I am again. They come back and say, yeah. We'll find you a name. So the last character I got to play was Senator Chewant. As in, so what you want, right? Yes, another Beastie Boys thing, man. I'm just like loving it. I'm living the dream, man, right? And I'm like, if that's what I'm going out with, that's what I'm going out with, bam, but no one will be able to take away my cast credits and the fact that I've played all these characters. And also I have like my prayers and my biggest thanks are to everybody who considers wanting to even talk to me as a podcast. Because the very first ones that wanted to do that were, I think it was Mark Newbold at Jedi News. And I wasn't too sure. And I wasn't sure, do I need permission to do this? Do I need permission? And I'm like, I waited on whether I could have that permission. I'm like, it hasn't come through. I know Star Wars. Yeah, I know what I can say. I know what I can't say and all this type of stuff. So I just started doing them. Yeah. And introducing myself to a Star Wars fan, like the Star Wars community that I never knew existed. I'd heard that there were Star Wars fans. I never knew anything about it. It's like my first trips to a convention, like San Diego Comic-Con or something like that, right? And I'm like, this isn't supposed to be real. This was something that was spoken about in the back of my comics when I was a kid. Yeah, this is something a bit different, a bit special. I'm just, yeah, and there's certain things like, I have to be responsible. Like I'm responsible, like for some of the images you see out there that people bring to me to sign, I know that I put that one out. If there's a picture of that droid from Rogue One and you've got the black background behind him and you've just got this much of him, I've got the full edit of that full length because it took me hours to get rid of all of that text that they put in the visual dictionary so that I could put that print out there. And then I see fans coming, oh, can you sign this for me? I'm like, yeah, I'll sign that for you. Did you know that I did that? No. But it's things like that, you know, and being responsible for it. Like if I find my image in a book, I'll use the Photoshop, get rid of all the dialogue and put no, I'll stick it out there. It's my image. Then I'll sign for it. It's just like it's if I'm gonna give that to the fans, then it's the way that I want to present it for the fans. Yeah, say this is the character that I played. This is what the image that I'm presenting to you. You know, there's like the full image of that droid that still hasn't surfaced, so that might come out one day. There's one of Slow and Low that I've posted. Have I posted it yet on my page? I'm not sure if I posted it on my page. I think I'm posting it soon, but it's just a complete white background and he stood there just like this. You've seen him on the set and stuff like that, but you haven't seen this picture before unless you've seen the visual dictionary. And so I'm going to be taking off the writing and all that. I'm posting that up hopefully this week. But I like to think that I have some kind of connection with the fan base because we all talk about Star Wars. We all love Star Wars. If there's bad stuff to talk about Star Wars or whatever, then we can stay away from that. Let's talk about all the good stuff. Let's talk about what inspired us as kids. You know, let's talk about those moments that almost broke you in Star Wars. Yeah, let's talk about those moments where even today you can watch it in at home or watch it in the cinema and see the kids jump up and cheer like when the Falcon comes through or when the X-Wings come. Just those things that hit children, yeah, at that level, where they're learning between right and wrong, good and bad, good guys and bad guys. Yeah, before they're learning about how complex a bad guy might be, they're learning what the definition is. You know, good guys do good things, bad guys do bad things. You know, if you do bad things, you get your comeuppance. That's the point of a fairy tale. That's the point of a story, a conclusion at the end. Yes, good will always triumph. If you're not showing good triumphing, then you better get around to it. You know, but it's just that childhood passion. The 12-year-old in me still wants to see 12-year-old productions, yeah, of Star Wars. If you're making something for a 12-year-old, I'm gonna love it. You'd make something for Star Wars fans and it's for adults, they're gonna love it. I ain't gonna love it. They're gonna love it. Good, man. Yeah, great. But it just means I've got to wait longer for something for me. Actually, no, I haven't. I've got DVDs. Yeah, I don't even subscribe to Disney. Yeah, can you imagine me subscribing to Disney Plus? Yeah, I would have ended up paying them more than they paid me for everything that I've been in. Nah, I own the DVDs.
We'll wrap up there. We could talk to you for hours, and we will have
you back. Anytime you want, man. I talk all day.
But I have one last question.
Yes.
You keep teasing it. Tell us the story of auditioning for MC Hammer.
Oh, wow, we're going back. Okay, right. So back in the day, to get an equity card, you needed contracts, and to get contracts, you needed an equity card. It was a catch-22. There was a newspaper called The Stage for actors, and you could only audition for something if you had an equity card. And I'm like, well, how do I get an equity card? And it's like, well, okay, you could dance for people. So when I started dancing for friends and bands and finally working my way, like I said, to Gwen Guthrie, that was my thing. But my style wasn't East Coast. My style was inspired by Bobby Brown. It was inspired by, and Bobby Brown was inspired by MC Hammer. I then got into MC Hammer in a big way. Like I knew about Turn This Mother Out. I knew about that video and stuff like that. By the time I kind of like finally learned Bobby's prerogative move, which was so easy. I was like, oh, Hammer. Right? But it's just my prerogative, right? So I learned that and I'm like, oh, and I'm fully into this LA West Coast style. which is bam, it's very expressive in its movements. MC Hammer was doing like, oh my goodness, was it 18 shows or something at Wembley Arena? I got to work a large portion of those, and I'm watching every single concert. I'd seen the videos, I was learning the dance moves for the routines. I knew the routine for you can't touch this, dun, 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 too legit to quit, learn that routine, too legit. Yeah, and I was learning all these routines, and then thing is, at Wembley Arena at the time, underneath the stage, that whole section had all of these cabinets, all of these silver travel compartments, which were costumes, because he was having different costumes every night, and he had like how many dancers and band members on stage, so all the costumes were down there, and the wardrobe lady was down there. Her name was Robin. But we had to come down that downstairs to sign out, and I met her when I was down there because I was like, "Oh man, how would I be able to get to audition for MC Hammer?" At the time, I had a flat top. It was burgundy. I still had my two ponytails. I had my two ponytails from back in the day, right? And so she looked at me and she says, "Oh man, you would fit in. You look like you'd be part of that." And she introduced me to her boyfriend. Now her boyfriend sang on stage with MC Hammer. Yeah, and there was twins. There was Tracy and Stacy. They were two black guys, twins, but they had the flat tops too, wavy, not red like mine. But all the dancers had names that were based on how they danced or how they looked. And so you had one dancer who had his hair like really swooped up like that. Yeah, this hair, and it just wouldn't move. But he was called No Bones, and because he was double jointed, so he was doing all these kinds of weird stuff on stage. And I remember Peter Andre got him to dance for him on tour at some point or whatever. And I'm like, dude, he's working. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's Peter Andre, dude's working. But yeah, there was things like that going on. And she said to me, okay, just give me your number and all this kind of stuff. So we exchanged information, and lo and behold, she arranged an audition for me. But I was going to have to fly out to Oakland, California for the audition. I flew to New York, and I was with a friend of mine over there for a little bit. And then I flew from New York to, I can't remember if it was LAX. Must have been LAX I flew to. And then she came and picked me up from there. And I spent the night on her couch, and in the morning she took me to the dance studio. And I remember sitting there, and there was a guy wearing a St. Louis top, and I was talking to him, and he said to me, "Man, you from Paris?" And I'm like, right? Because they don't know, right? And so I remember having this audition. I remember right. So working at Wembley Arena, I used to work at the ice hockey championships, right? Used to love them. And I remember ordering this Heineken jacket, and it was gray, and it had black leather sleeves. Yeah. And it had Heineken on the back and whatever. And I remember wearing that, these baggy trousers that I had, and just doing my audition. Yeah. The guy who's auditioning it, I don't think he was even bothered. He was just, I'm not even sure he was even watching what I was doing. Right. But when I'd finished, they just said to me, "We'll keep your information because when we pass through into Europe, we may call you up." Yeah, so it might be one of those things. They're in Europe, and it's like, "Oh, we've got one of your local boys on us," but then blah, blah, blah. Might be one of those things. So I was like, that was the best I walked away with from Hammer, with that promise. But it was that year. It was later that year that he lost money with the Too Legit to Quit World Tour. And in the Too Legit to Quit video, they're wearing gray baseball jackets with the black leather sleeves. And I'm like, yeah, you can have that. Yeah, you can have that. Yeah, because there was nothing like that in their wardrobe. There was nothing like that. I was the first person to walk into that building with that stuff. Yeah. So I'm like, I've left a stamp, I've left a mark with Too Legit to Quit. But that was an important time for me. At that, like just before that time, I had come through college and things like that with knowing people who knew Hudson and Dean. Hudson and Dean danced for Snap. I Got the Power in the grey suits and the red shoes.
Mhm.
And then they went on and danced for Pet Shop Boys. But that wasn't West Coast at all. And nobody was looking for a West Coast dance or dance routines with that style at all, because it was like, oh, this is the trend we're moving with now. You know, so it was very straight and very stiff and very not anything like Bobby Brown, not anything like MC Hammer or Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation, nothing like. And that's where I fit. So by the end of that year, my friend says, "Oh, we're going to the Prince concert." I'm like, "What? You got tickets?" Says, "No, no, no. They're saying at this certain time they all come and sit outside." So I'm like, "Okay, I'll go with it." When I met them at the Olympia, yeah. So I'm sitting there and I'm chatting to the Game Boys, and they're looking at me up and down because they still have that look, and they're like, "Yeah, do you rap and do you do anything and whatever, blah blah?" And I said, "Well, man, I did a college rap. It's kind of corny, it's kind of crappy or whatever and stuff like that, and it's on VHS, and I can give that to you." But that was the most, because it wasn't like I had demos or anything. But that I think they were looking to see how they could develop the MPG or where I could fit. And they said, "Well, we'll see you next year because we're coming back to do the concert next year." So I'm like, "All right, cool, cool, cool." So I'm really looking forward to that. They came back the following year, but Prince came back without the MPG and he did the stadium. Yeah. So he changed everything. So I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." But that's Prince, man. He changed. But that was as close as I got to the MPG. But in the same year that I had my audition with MC Hammer, I think it was like either the same year or the following year that I ended up meeting the MPG. And then there was that following year that I ended up in M&A. And so everything that I would have done as a dancer for MC Hammer or could have done for the MPG was now being funneled through my creative process into M&A. Even with the dance routines, no one was doing dance routines like that because no one was thinking about a huge stage. Everything that we did was designed for a huge stage so that we could run off and come back and do whatever and blah blah and keep it as gritty as the bands that we loved, like Jodeci or Guy. You know, that period, that you know, and I had posters of MC Hammer on my wall before I had that audition. I had posters of the MPG on my wall before I met the MPG. I had posters on my wall of Jodeci before they remixed Happy. I had posters on my wall of Janet Jackson before we toured with Janet Jackson. So my prayers were being well placed. And I was kind of seeing the reality of just by holding on to a dream and being sincere about it. You know, I might not have the dream today, but I'll go and do something as if I still had that dream. Like I'll go and work out a routine, or I'll go and do something that's in line with that. But my mind never really lost that connection, even with the posters and things. But MC Hammer, that was beyond belief, because that was when he was the biggest artist in the world. Even after my band M&A, I was styling M&A, so I was dressing M&A. After that, I did a bit of time styling for Garage Nation album cover. I did a school album cover, whatever, where it was, I don't know, but I can't remember what it was. And then I ended up styling for Shania Twain when she was the biggest female artist in the world. Just these things that just popped up, yeah. And for her, it was a freebie. But then when she found out that I was doing it as a freebie, she came downstairs and put a wad of cash in my hand, because she said she knows what it must have taken me to get most of that stuff.
Did you say that don't impress me much?
Oh, oh, I missed. Oh, no. Oh, if only you were in my ear to tell me that. But she was one of the most adorable, sweetest people to even consider doing that when she's the biggest female selling artist in the world. All the other artists barely said a word to me, or their managers said thank you or whatever and blah blah. Didn't get much out of what was her name? I'm just a skater boy, the data boy.
Avril Lavigne.
Yes, yeah. Got her tons of van stuff. Like I was walking with bags, get to her tour bus or whatever, and said, "Yeah, I've got all this van stuff for her and whatever. And if you want it, you can give it to your friends and all this kind of stuff, whatever." But okay, cool. Thank you. You know, Even smaller artists, I style smaller artists and have a harder time because their managers want them to dress like Blur or Oasis, and the bands are saying, "No, we want to dress like this. We want to dress." I'm like, I can get you that, but your manager's asking me to get you this. I remember getting headhunted because I say I used to snowboard. It's just I haven't done it in a while, right? I'm friends with Christian Stevenson, who is now DJ Barbecue on Instagram. He was the presenter on Rad for Channel 4. He has two movies. He has like a few movies. He has Odd Man Out, which is snowboarding and skateboarding, surfing. Day Tripper, still day tripping or whatever. There's part 2 to that. Just the skate community he introduced me to. He's the one that introduced me to Neil McNabb, who was training the British snowboarding team when I was learning how to snowboard, because he was running snowboarding camps. And you're being taught by Neil, a pro, and you've got professional boarders with you. And it's just like, how are you not going to learn how to fly? Right? Just totally clued in with all of these people. So when I'm coming back and I'm styling, I know Airwalk, I know Vans, I know DC, I know all the legit brands, whether even Spiewak, I just anybody I could get my hands on. They knew the legit stuff. And so I would get calls from other bands or other labels saying, yeah, we're looking, is this Dee? I said, yeah. I said, we hear that you can get like official branded stuff, like skate stuff and whatever. I said, yeah. He says, oh, yeah, well, we're looking for somebody who can do that, because the stylists that we're getting at the moment, they don't know the brands. They're just getting cheap knockoff stuff. And I'm like, leave it with me. You know, even today, you know, I'm still hardcore with my DCs. But yeah, that whole period, that transition from dancing into being in a band to finally getting to be an actor, and then having Equity chase me down to say, we've been trying to get hold of you. You should be signing up to Equity. And I'm like, man, I remember when I was trying to do that. You know, because it had been so long, you know, and then signing up to Equity for the first time. Just that whole, my journey's been bizarre. It's been bizarrely beautiful, the good parts and the bad parts. I've just learned so much. But having it been done this way, from growing up as a kid, yeah, we go back to that. We'll go back to that. Growing up as a kid and taking it back to Jim Henson, taking it back to the Muppets and Sesame Street. For them to even have been friends with George Lucas, yeah, if it wasn't for them, if it wasn't for the Muppets, I wouldn't know anything about Star Wars. Let's put it that way. You know, I doubt if I would have had an interest if I hadn't have seen Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog, Frank Oz, Jim Henson in a swamp with some green toad looking dude. Yeah, that's my childhood. Yeah, that's what I remember the most about Star Wars. And to reach a point in my career where they're calling me because I have something to offer them, it's very, very humbling. You know, I say it's an easy gig. I say all these things, yes, because my heart's there. That's why. Not because I'm frivolous about it or I couldn't give a damn about it. Says, oh yeah, I'll just do that. No, there are actors out there that are jobbing actors. They will say yes to every single acting job that comes up. I don't. I only say yes to stuff that I want to do. I'm not that precious at all, you know. And I've been fortunate to be able to work on stuff that's based on fairy tale. Even working on Willow was a surprising disappointment. I remember working on that, playing. I was one of the trolls on that, and I remember speaking to members of the crew or whatever, and they're saying, "Yeah, we're not sure about this, we're not sure about that." And there's me saying, look, man, ILM, they'll just make everything look beautiful. Don't you worry about it. It's going to look amazing. They were talking about the script. I was talking about the aesthetics. And I'm still kind of right about the aesthetics, but the aesthetics don't kind of overshine the writing, yeah? Or whatever agenda was being pushed through that show. I was a part of a fairy tale. I got to work with Warwick Davis again, and also it felt like honoring Warwick Davis. I mean, I'd seen Willow when I was a kid. I knew it was George Lucas and Ron Howard. I knew it. It's like, oh wow, it's from the same crew that did these things. Wow. And they're pushing forward with the animation and that transformation, that morphing, all that kind of stuff. It was nice to be able to help honor that franchise, that IP, with Warwick at the helm of it. How it turned out is unfortunate, even as far as the trolls were concerned. Like, that was the first time I'd done prosthetics, worn teeth, and had contact. Yeah, for some reason, you know, they picked D. D will do it. Yeah, have you done that before, D? No. Is there a problem? No. you know, we'll see how that is when I'm trying on contacts for the very first time in my life, right? Someone's putting something in my eye. It's for Star Wars, man. No, it's for George Lucas. No, it's for Lucasfilm, man. It's for Lucasfilm. You know, just the amount of time that it took to do all of that, for how fleeting it all was, felt very, very empty. It was kind of like, wow, all the work that these guys have been doing for months in making this stuff, and so that we could do these scenes, and you're just cutting straight through it. You're just and like it's nothing, and it's not even like there's 2 episodes we're in, we're only in 1 episode, and I'm thinking, wow, this is really unfulfilling work. You know, you get to do the day, and yes, I get to act with Christian Slater. And you know, when I'm giving him a dirty look, and he's looking at me, and I was saying, I got a message from you from Chavez. Yeah, he knows who I'm talking about. And he goes, Young Guns. And I'm like, yeah, man, you know, just these moments, man. And the funny thing is, they're on their own, they are literally just beautiful moments that either I'm gonna walk away with saying, wow, that was an amazing experience, or because of this thing, no, I didn't like the whole thing. No, there's always something really beautiful that I've always been able to take away from all of these productions. And I'm lucky I've been able to do that, and lucky that I've also not had to do all the extra stuff. Yeah, they'll send me a packed contract, which means they want to feature me, which means they want to give me dialogue. Okay, cool. Call me in for extra work. You would have had to have treated me a lot better in the last production for me to do that. And like I said, I'm fulfilled, man. I'm fulfilled. I'm digging it. What is it? I'm going to show you something. Wait right there. Like, I wear this jacket. I was wearing this jacket today.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Right? In this jacket, I have a friend of mine that lives in this jacket, in this side pocket.
Yeah.
Oh, look. Is it? You got a picture of him back there?
Oh yeah.
It's a little tiny you.
Lego you.
Just, yeah, man.
That's
You know, and that fit, and you can only get that character if you bought the solo Lego Millennium Falcon. You can't get that anymore. I'm living the dream. The Quaitol Sight action figure, very hard figure to get hold of. I'm living the dream. It's just, yeah. And it's one of those things where if you were in Star Wars, you would not be able to, it'd be very difficult for you to verbalize the experience, because you'd want to talk about it from this angle. Then you need to talk about it from this angle. Then you need to talk about it from the personal angle. Then you need to talk about from the goosebumps you got from just being on set, yeah, and what it means. And then you're seeing famous people walk past, whether they're actual characters or not. You're running into R2 and you're losing your mind, right? I did lose my mind when I saw R2. And then you meet a new droid like BB-8, and you have, you know, Matt Denton telling you how it works, and he's just talking Chinese. This is and you walk away, and then he comes, and then BB-8's walking with you, and he's talking to you, and it's like it's like you've got a puppy next to you, and it's so real. Yeah. Those things, man, they're just powerful moments, man. I just love them.
Yeah, that's it. It's just, as you say, harkening back, just pleasing that inner child, and you know, you get to play with the toys that you grew up playing with. You are now playing with the toy version of yourself. You now have that little you.
I did that sci-fi Capital Con in Scotland for Chaz, that Children's Hospice Association Scotland. Yeah, just amazing charity. And the droid guides were there. And then I ran into R2. And then I struck up a conversation with R2 and started walking through the place. And then we were talking to people, having pictures with the people and whatever, but I'm having a conversation with R2. I understand R2. They don't understand R2, but it's giving them something. It's giving fans something, and it's what cosplayers do. They give people like just a photographic moment, or they reenact something, or you just see them in costume and you're like, oh man, I remember that. But it's what we do in the movie. It's the same process. I'm giving the audience, I'm giving the people on set, but it has to read for the audience. Best thing for me is when I look at Star Wars and I see a character that I'm in, I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. My brain says, that ain't you. That ain't you. That don't look like you. And I've moved on. Yeah. The fact that I can't see me in any of these movies is a blessing, because I'm just like, wow. I'm like, yeah. It doesn't take me out of the movie at all. If I was doing something odd or stupid that didn't work, I would be I would be my worst critic, you know. But the fact that these characters just come on and whatever, blah, blah, and you don't even see my face. If someone wanted to cast me in what TV shows are happening right now, if someone wanted to cast me in, let's say if they were still doing Big Bang Theory, I love Big Bang Theory, right? They cast me in that, I'll be like, if you cast me in it, I won't be able to watch it. Yeah, the jokes would hit different. I already know what the script is. I see me on. Nah, put me in something and I can't see my face. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I've realized that rather than being in Bad Boys 18, I'd be better off in some creature effects fantasy movie, living the dream, contributed. But yeah, it's the CFX job isn't something I ever expected in my life, but it has been a beautiful blessing in terms of being able to contribute to multi-million-dollar movies and being seen as worthy enough to be able to carry dialogue in any of those movies or have a featured part in those movies, knowing that you're going to get a guaranteed performance or you're going to get what it is that you're after from my performance. I've loved it. I don't know what I'm doing in my career now, man. I'm just signing. I've been doing some signings, maybe going to StatueCon again this year. Yeah, I did StatueCon in Michigan last year, so I should be there this year. I was the last person to find that out, actually. They knew before I did. So I'll be doing that again. That's amazing. I think there's a few other little cons and stuff I might be doing in Michigan in around that area. Literally just meeting people. And when the parents bring their kids in and they just want to talk, that's why I won't do those big events, you know, for more than a few good reasons. But I want to be able to go do some signings. If a kid comes up and wants to talk to me about Star Wars, I want to talk to that kid. I want that. Look, when I was a kid, was there anybody to talk to about the Muppets? Was there anybody to talk to about Star Wars? Was there anybody to talk to about Buck Rogers? No. If a kid comes up to me, I'm going to give him everything that I never had. Yeah, you want to know? And they talk to me about these stories and these concepts and blah, blah. And we just get into it. And it's just one of the most beautiful things. That's one of the things that I love the most. And I get to do that at most of these signings. Happens in Ireland with the one, Minicon Ireland did the one with David there. Spoke to loads of people there. The Capital Sci-Fi Con in Scotland, that was beautiful, absolutely amazing. And I did, yeah, at StatueCon I got to talk to some kids there, and just kids and it's their parents that are loving it too, because the kids are asking all the questions that the parents want to know. And then you're talking, and then the parents will say, oh, but what about this? What about that? And they get in to speak to someone who's been in Star Wars about Star Wars. How often does anybody get the opportunity to do that? You know, other than yourselves, of course. Well, you know, we do this nearly every other week. But, you know, but it still hits you. It still hits you. I think I've carried that all the way through from even doing the pantos, because it was all about entertaining the kids. Yeah. And like you said, you mentioned it, and I think you're right. It's the 12-year-old in me wants to connect with other 12-year-olds. Yeah. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. It's just the imagination and the love, man. Yeah. Yeah. You know.
Well, Dee, your life is a beautiful and inspirational journey, and chats like this are the modern day behind the scenes features on DVDs that we don't get, and hearing stories from yourself, someone who's been there, seen it with his own eyes, and tells the story as exquisitely as you do yourself. We're doing the God's work here, sir. This is what George would have wanted.
Bless you. But I've got to ask you, is there anything personally you two have ever wanted to know about Star Wars, regardless about what I'm in?
Mhm.
that we could that
My fascination is always with creature work. I love, like yourself, I am a massive Henson fan. I have a tattoo down my side of Kermit the Frog, but with Jim Henson as a puppet in his
oh
hand, because
yeah, I
he's so
praise you,
inspiring.
dude.
I love Jim Henson. I'm so inspired by, as you say, his work in children's television, his idea that you don't speak down to children, you get on their level to educate, you teach
Yes,
them through fun and through having difficult conversations, but breaking it down in a way that they'll understand, and that's why you have episodes of Sesame Street that deal with death. You
yeah,
have dealing with conflict in the world and that sort of thing. It's so
yeah,
important, but I'm fascinated by creature performance. It's so interesting to hear how, your choreography work gets you kind of into the idea of movement, and then that movement is transferable into your creature work and your character development for those creatures. And, I just that's the kind of thing that interests me. And to hear your story, and recently we spoke with Hugh Spite, who was one of the Gamorrean guards in Return of the Jedi, and how he comes from a dancing background too. And it's all these kind of interlinking backgrounds that all come together to culminate in these creatures we get. Jabba's palace is made up of dancers and puppeteers and
right.
marionette performers and mimes and all sorts of things. And
Yes,
it's that
yes.
there. I'm incredibly fascinated by that world. So to hear that idea. Those kind of principles that were set up with the original trilogy and the likes of Return of the Jedi are still followed through now with the likes of The Force Awakens.
Okay, well, okay, hold your thought there, right?
Hmm.
But what it was is like we had a show and tell. It was called Show and Tell, yeah, on The Force Awakens, which was when they had sorted out everyone's costumes and their creatures or whatever and stuff like that. There was like a sound stage that we go into that was all cornered off, and they create a set in there, and the creatures and puppeteers, everyone will be in there, and then JJ was going to walk through and see and pick out which he wanted for the cantina. Now I'm in this room, I meet Warwick Davis for the first time in this room. Yeah, and I went and introduced myself, and I know he probably thought, oh God, this is another little fan. I know he probably thought that. I know he probably thought that, but I didn't overstay my welcome. Kind of did my little bit. Hello. And then I met Dave Chapman. Dave Chapman, he had worked on What's Up Doc, operating one of the wolves. And he said to me, how you doing, Dee? And I'm like, huh? I'm like, yeah, I'm good, I'm good. Because you remember me? I said, no. And he goes, I remember you. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, were you ever on a Saturday show called What's Up, Doc? I said, yeah. We performed on there. He says, yeah. He goes, I was one of the wolves. I said, no way. Just blast from my past is in the room, but he was a puppeteer, so you're absolutely right. He should be in that room. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, this is trippy. That was just the start of it. There were these two characters you see in The Force Awakens, and they're at the bar, and they're called Snooties, I think they were called Snooties. They got these long snooty noses, and they've got these big goggles on this side or whatever. Now in the room, they were sat at a table, which meant the guys that were operating them were lying on the floor on their backs. And I'm like, this is so cool. Then I'm seeing at another table, you've got these giant mosquitoes playing cards or something, but you've got puppeteers operating them on the floor. I'm thinking, wow. Then there's a big guy sitting at the back, and there's like two or three guys operating his face or whatever, while some girl's sitting on him or something or whatever. I'm thinking, whoa. And the instructions I've been given is that with my back to the door where JJ's coming in, Tom's gonna see him coming in, and Tom's gonna gesture to me and set me off and get me laughing. And we're on our knees, all right? And so Neil says, just as they're about to come in, I'm going to say creatures come alive. And then when they leave, I'm saying, okay, creatures finish. Yeah. And then I said to Neil, I said, do you want me to laugh for the whole time? He said, yeah. Like it's nothing. Right. And I'll go, okay, Roger. Right. And so getting there. Now I'm laughing. I must have been laughing for 20 minutes. Yeah, and being set off and giggling and whatever from Tom, and we're walking around, and I caught a glimpse of JJ through my eyes and talking to Neil, and at one point he says, can they walk? And and then we started walking, just kind of whatever, and he's looking at them and whatever, and then before you know it, they've gone. I couldn't. that I heard that Mark Hamill had come through. I heard that a few other people had come through to see it. I don't know who was in the room. I only saw JJ through what little images I had. But then when I took the head off, Neil Scanlon said, "Well done, everybody, and can we give Dee Tails a massive round of applause?" Because as far as sound-wise, I'm the only one making any sound in that room. But I took my head off, everybody's cracking up because of that thing. That was a Jim Henson moment for me. Being in a room surrounded by puppeteers, people that have worked with Jim Henson, hands down. People who had just come off working on Harry Potter, hands down. And they're clapping for me. That was probably the most humbling moment of my entire career, stepping into that career in CFF. And then after that, yeah, fair enough. The next thing was being on the other side of the set, getting ready to shoot, and seeing everybody, even Kieran Shah, who I'd just been watching in Lord of the Rings, and I had to tell him that, right? And stuff like that. And we've become really good friends since then. But seeing everybody, and then Artie Shah, who's in Paddington, who's won awards, yes, for Paddington, which means that Pinewood can't hire her now without giving her a decent contract. Yeah, see what I'm saying? Right? You know, some respect. It's like the puppeteers on Solo. You know, barely used, sitting there reading their books, moving a thing, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, man, I feel for you. And, you know, they didn't go off and work on Dark Crystal. Win awards! That's how you do it. It's like a couple of directors. They go and do an amazing Spider-Man movie, get Oscar. That's how you do it. Right? So these little moments are absolutely amazing, you know, and seeing these people just beaming through their performances and being able to share time with them, and Artie saying to me, "Oh man, I remember your band." Right? But that reminded me of the very first time I saw the behind the scenes, where I saw the Ewoks and the stormtroopers in the woods with their helmets off and half in the costume and half out of costume, and I'm there and I'm like, you know, you look at a room and then all of a sudden it's a wash and you're taken back to 1980 something, and it's like, whoa. And then he comes back, it's like, whoa, right? You're just there. That all of those specific moments were profound for that for that interwoven connection between being an actor, understanding puppetry and creature performing. Like, I'd done physical movement at college. I knew about that. But you've really got to know about Jim Henson's work to know how to work your way through a creature suit, especially if you're given very limited time to rehearse in it. And it's just a blessing, just an absolute blessing. And what about you, sir?
I don't really have a specific question. It's just the thing I find about Star Wars from myself being a filmmaker. I never, even though I know their movies, I've seen the behind the scenes. Never when I'm watching a Star Wars movie do I think this is a movie. I think
Yeah.
this is a this is a story with people I know. I know what their motivations are. I know what their relationships are, and it could go anywhere. And I don't think there's any other franchise to me that sort of has that freedom of, sure, I know Maul and his whole life story, but watching Maul Shadow Lord, I still get the excitement of, well, this could happen. They introduce new people. What's their story? They introduce a new planet. What's its story? So it's sort of comprehensive wise, it's all these things that cumulates in. I never find anything in Star Wars boring. That's it in a nutshell.
That's because there's always room to grow, because your imagination as a child, you know, even like, look, let's say for example, as a kid and you're watching Back to the Future 2. No, you're watching Back to the Future 1. Marty, it's your kids. Something's got to be done about your kids, Marty. Right? Getting that kind of took off. Where is your mind when the credits are going? Where is your mind? I remember walking with a whole bunch of mates of mine from middle school. Yeah, it wasn't even high school, from middle school, I think it was. We were walking back from the cinema, and it just so happens that we were walking back through some really wide streets, and there are very few wide streets in Harrow, yeah, where we are. But it's the back streets, and it was just at night. I was just like, can you imagine if someone pulled up in a car and said, "Yo, dudes, we gotta do this." Your mind is just lit, you know, with Star Wars. When you're being introduced to somebody, It's not like they were just born that minute and created that minute. They've just there's a life there. What is it like to live in the middle of a sand place like that? Your mind is thinking, well, he works in that bar, and he serves all these people. Where are all these people coming from? You see these ships and whatever. Do they live here? What's going on? Who's that? It's just that's what it is. That's why the world around Star Wars, from the CFX, from puppeteers to the CGI to the VFX, that create the world building machine. That's why it's so important. And that's why that was one of the things that stood out the most when I was watching one or two episodes of the first Andor. We were aware at the time. The director said, "Oh no, we don't want a lot of creatures in this movie. Because we don't want the movie to be about creatures." My question is, when have you seen a Star Wars movie that was just about creatures? You just got to ask one question and it tells you it gives you a multitude of answers that you don't even need to hear them say, And so apparently they made up for that in Animal Season 2, that they shot or were shooting while they had me on the other project. Thank you. But it's the world building. One of my favorite aspects about Star Wars is when they're flying into a new planet and you're seeing the landscape. I'm like, oh my goodness, I want them to slow it down. I would watch if someone's out there that does like compiling all these things, just compile every single entry into a planetary system. I loved Coruscant because I know Coruscant goes deep, 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 deep down, right? But it's like you see it in slow motion, you're like, well, who lives there? What's down that street? Naboo. Wow. I love that. Even on my phone. But on my phone, I have a picture of Coruscant, and I'm just like, those things are just amazing because it's the world. And then later, yeah, obviously you get into that and they start acting in this place or whatever. Wow, and you're just flying in and you're seeing this place. I could freeze that screen and spend at least 15 minutes just thinking, I wonder who lives there. I wonder what it's like to live down there, or wonder where that alley goes, or is that a house or is that a building, and just study it and just think, whoa, people live there. Your imagination's like, people live there, and that I love. That's one of the most beautiful things. And when you're saying it doesn't feel like you're watching something, it's because of the grace and beauty of it, and then it just sweeps into a wipe. Yeah, and you're somewhere new, and it's like, oh my goodness. It's the care and love that's been put into those movies that just kind of takes you there. And yes, it's the hero's journey, and there are many facets to the hero's journey, but it's how they attach that hero's journey to, well, that's your protagonist. Well, let's look at your antagonist's hero journey. Ooh. And then there's a droid. It's like, all right, let's take it. This will be fun. It's just, it is the modern day way of telling fairy tales. And that's what they captured with Marvel as well, right up until Endgame. It was that, yes, they had some that worked and some that didn't, but it was the way you tell a modern day fairy tale. And there has to be good and evil. And there has to be repercussions for making bad decisions. Some of them can be complicated, like, what was it, Civil War? Whose side were you on, Iron Man or Captain America? Whoa, it's like, pick a side, man. And then either which side you pick, you learn as to why that character made that decision out of truth or being mistaken about it, and then you, as a kid or as a teenager or something, your mind just expands into the ramifications that are being put on this scene, that are being played by characters that shoot a bow and arrow or have a shield or do something, and you're just like, okay, I'm digging this. And with Star Wars, you have everything from mythos to how do you say it? Mythologically turning religion into some kind of myth, in terms of having the Force, the good Force. There's darkness and there's the light and stuff like that. And they're good metaphors for children to understand in terms of the light and the dark. What's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong. Every child struggles to understand that when they're growing up. They need the adult's guidance. Like when you're watching a movie with your kid and they're seeing it for the first time, they don't mind you talking all the way through it because you're saying, yeah, and that's the bad guy. He's the one that you have to watch out for. And they're like, oh, okay, all right. And you're teaching them and they're showing, and then they get to see what, it's that thing that never gets old. Never gets old. And you remember watching that for the first time thinking, oh my goodness. Yeah, but I love those things, the same things you love about them. But then we're fans, man, and truly, I might not know the names of some of the characters, but I love that world. Yeah, I probably know more about Sesame Street than I know about some of the characters in Star Wars. But it's the same world. It's the same world. I want to see a Sesame Street version of Star Wars. Or the Muppets version of Star Wars. I think that's the next thing that needs to happen.
Hello, I will say that this whole conversation, Danny, if you want to point your camera up a bit, Kermit the Frog has been in
He's
both
been
of our
watching
rooms
over us
the whole
the
time.
whole time.
He's never too far away.
He's never too far. Never too far.
But thank you very much, Dee. Thank you very much for your time. Excellent chat. I hope people really enjoy this. Come back and talk to us again. We'll talk more
Hey,
stuff.
let's talk about when Mando and Grogu comes out. We'll do another chat.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we need to, because I think the way the movies have been going and the way the TV shows have been going, let's hope it's got a good thing. There's going to be a beautiful thing to talk about and to discuss. And even if we're the only ones who think it's beautiful, let's just talk about the beautiful parts about it, because those are the things that need to be spoken about with Star Wars. Star Wars has given a lot more love and care to its audience than what it has done recently. There's more good in what they've done than bad in what they've done. So just make sure that you're holding on to that good stuff. Don't hold on to the bad stuff. You don't like it. Let's talk about the good stuff, man.
Well,
just move on.
That's the aim. That's the aim of the podcast. Me and
That's
Danny have said it from episode 1.
Our whole shtick
is we just talk about the positive stuff. You can talk about there's enough negative Star Wars thoughts online, like, oh, she's a woman. Okay. You can only say that so many times before it gets bored. And we like the good stuff. And obviously conversations like this lead to more interesting conversations rather than going round in circles.
Yeah. I think it's healthy, but it's also we didn't fall in love with Star Wars as children to be able to just trash it later on. It's just like, why are you trashing your youth? That's what inspired you. That's part of your youth. Let's just get back to that. Even if you were to do something and you would say, well, okay, this year we're going to act as if A New Hope came out this year. So all our podcasts are going to be about as if this movie came out the new year, like this year, next year. Empire Strikes Back comes out. Even if you did that, it's connecting right back to what you love about them. And there is one thing that gets annoying. It's just like, oh yeah, but she kissed her brother. She was trying to make Han Solo jealous. She wasn't in love with the dude.
Look, we've all been at a wedding and there's a cousin that comes over a little bit tipsy.
Yeah. No, let's not talk about that.
What happens on the Death Star stays the Death Star, But thank you very much, Dee. Thank you for your time.
Yes,
thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Danny, of course, joining me as always. You can find us on all our socials. You can find Dee on Instagram, Twitter, Dee, Facebook.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. You recognize me. It's just a Daffy Duck image. And that's me. Instagram is it D_Tails_official. So those are the best places to catch me. Twitter, I haven't used Twitter in years. I don't even think I've got the right ID for Twitter.
It's a wasteland, Dee. You don't want it. But join us next week for more fun and shenanigans in the stars. And as always, we have friends everywhere. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
May the Force be with you.
Jennifer Walters, Esquire, lawyer, millennial, searching for a way to balance a career and her personal life. Then an accidental dose of gamma-radiated blood alters her body chemistry. And now, when Jennifer Walters grows angry or outraged, a startling metamorphosis occurs. The creature is driven by rage and pursued by online trolls.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
She is provoked into a rampage that has landed her in prison, and now she is seen only for the raging spirit that dwells within her.